Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Leverett Ball Show. And on this episode, I am joined by Trey Burton. And NFL fans, you guys likely remember this guy well from his time as a tight end. And Trey is nice enough to join us today. And Trey, what's new with you these days?
Not much, man. Got some sports going on this weekend with the kids, and just been really enjoying that. It's been fun.
Awesome. So some future Eagles players, maybe.
Yeah, maybe one. I mean, maybe a couple Gators. That'd be great too. Living in the state of Florida. Big Gator fan.
Oh, absolutely. And it's funny because obviously during your NFL career you played with the Eagles, Bears, and Colts, but you mentioned the Gators. You came out of Florida as an undrafted free agent, and you really exceeded the average expectations of an undrafted guy coming out of college, and had a great career. But I'm curious, you're obviously a really talented player. You proved that in the NFL. Also, you played at Florida, so it's not like you're playing at a tiny school no one had not heard of, and you weren't getting exposure. So, how did such a talented guy like you coming out of a program like Florida get overlooked initially?
Yeah, that's a great question. Looking back at the time, you have no clue. You think that the world's against you, but like looking back at it, having three offensive coordinators in 4 years definitely plays a factor into it. Not being very competitive. Your senior year, I think we were 4-7 or something along those lines. One of the worst, records in Florida history. Obviously plays, a factor into it. And then I think the biggest factor was, not necessarily having a position to be featured in to a degree. I remember getting the invite to the combine. I went with the tight ends, but I had never played tight end before, and so like the week before the combine, the gym I was training at calls up a guy named Anthony Beck who played in the league for 12 or 15 years, and it was like, hey Anthony, can you just teach this guy how to get into a 3-point stance? And so I didn't know how to get into a 3-point stance. I didn't know a lot of the fundamentals from a tight end standpoint, and then get to the combine. I finished my workout, and I have a coach come up to me and was like, "Hey, you're staying for the running back workout as well, right?" And I was like, "Nah, man, I have a flight in 45 minutes. I gotta hop on." So, not really having a position definitely, hurt my draft stock for sure.
Well, you mentioned the versatility though, because that interest in you as a tight end, as a running back. You eventually became a very good tight end in the NFL, but your rookie year, you really made a name for yourself on special teams, so you could do a lot of different stuff. I'm actually shocked that the Patriots never tried to sign you, or maybe they did behind the scenes. But I mean, they love guys who can do a little bit of everything. I'm here in the Boston area when Belichick was coaching for them. He loved versatile players and loved using multiple tight ends. But then, what was that like, when you first got into the NFL? Did you feel disrespected and like you had something to prove, or did you more understand because you were making a position change as you moved up to the new level?
Yeah, I just kind of put all of that aside, and my main goal was just make a team. I didn't really care which team. There's 32 of them out there. I'm on one, right now, and my whole goal was just to get better every week. Truly, like every practice, every week. Learn something from these experiences, and then whenever I would get a chance, whether it was, what do they call those? The practices where you practice against another team during training camp, like mixed training camp practice, or whatever reps I got in the game. Make sure yeah, I enjoyed being a Philly, but like I wanted to make a team. So yeah, I enjoy being on a team, try to make the team you're on, but put film out there so that you might have a chance to make another team if you get cut, because that's what happens in the NFL.
100%, 100%. And it's interesting because like we mentioned, you had a really good season your rookie year on special teams. In year two of your career, you got involved more on offense. You had 37 receptions. I mean, when you had that type of season, did you feel as though you'd established yourself as an NFL tight end at that point, or did you still feel as though it was part of the learning process at that point?
Yeah, you never really get to the point where you establish yourself until, I would say until you get your second contract. You're still as an undrafted guy, you're year to year. You're just happy to be a part of the team. I was just really some of the advice I got early on was like, hey, don't be labeled as just a special teams guy. And I was really, fortunate and happy that I was able to play a little bit of offense my second year in the league, and um, got that just a special teams guy, label off of me, and showed that I could do something on offense. And that was really important to me. And just whatever the team needed, to a degree, I was real willing to rock and roll.
Well, and you weren't just a special teams guy. You also weren't just a tight end. You were also a thrower of the football on one very famous play. Obviously the Philly special play at the end of the first half of the Super Bowl win over the Patriots. Now, probably you've been asked about that play every day of your life since you threw that touchdown pass. So I'm going to add to the list of people who have asked you about this. But I mean, that must have been crazy, as a tight end throwing a touchdown pass on a trick play in the Super Bowl. I mean, was that just kind of a whirlwind?
Yeah, you don't didn't really think too much of it while it was happening, honestly. It wasn't until I got to the sideline and um, got to celebrate with the guys, and it would have really, meant not much if we wouldn't have won. So winning, obviously is the most important thing, and we're just really excited and happy that the city got to experience that for the first time.
100%. And also, obviously in practice, I'm sure you guys go over every single potential scenario. And, maybe you run plays in practice that you end up not using in a game. Maybe sometimes you run trick plays in practice that you don't use in the game. But you've obviously learned how to run those plays in practice. But then when a trick play gets called in a Super Bowl and you're actually running it in a live game in a Super Bowl, I mean, are you almost like caught off guard, or are you just kind of programmed to be ready for anything?
Yeah, I mean, you could say programmed. I didn't really um, I didn't really have much time to really think about the grand scheme and the situation, and there was no pressure. There wasn't really much thought at all. It kind of just happened so fast, and it just was so natural that um, I didn't have time to be nervous. Nor obviously thinking back, I wouldn't have wanted to be nervous, but I can see how people would think I, might be. But no, I just didn't have the time, and got a great toss from Corey, and obviously Foles was wide open, didn't have to make a very hard throw.
100%. And, like you said, Foles, your quarterback was when he caught that pass. Um, a couple Eagles teammates I want to ask you about. I mean, one of them was him. I mean, he was a guy, at times in his career, he was a starter, at times he was a backup, but he always came through in the playoffs. And I mean, what was it like, playing with Nick Foles?
It was amazing. He's a gamer, the ultimate gamer. Him and I had a lot of time and experience together because he was a backup for a little bit when he came back to Philly, and I was a backup tight end, so we would run scout team stuff and have a lot of opportunity together. So unbelievable locker room guy, obviously as talented as they come from a throwing standpoint, and just new anticipation and where to throw the ball, at all the time.
Well, and also, another legendary Eagle, you play with was Jason Kelce. Legendary player from a legendary football family. I mean, he and his brother Travis are beasts on the football field. Obviously, Jason's retired now. Travis is going to be suiting up for another season with the Chiefs. But, obviously, he was a great center. But what was it like not only playing with him, but, being around him? And was he kind of a mentor for you early in your career?
No, I wouldn't say mentor. Just because I never really mixed with the offensive line much. I was more with just the tight ends, But I would say he's a generational center. Just his knowledge of the game, the way he controlled the offense, the pressure he took off the quarterback. He always got us in the right look, always got us in the right play, and just yeah, I guess I would just say I've been on a couple other teams, and yeah, I had good centers, but nobody was like Kelce, and nobody took the pressure and the responsibility that Kelce wanted to take, and the leadership that he had was just amazing.
100%, 100%. And I mean, he seems hilarious on his podcast that he does with his brother Travis. Was he like that, like in the locker room, where you could crack a lot of jokes, have a fun time?
Yeah, I think maybe not to the extent he is now, but he definitely, I mean, he's being himself, and he's having a good time and having a great life, after ball. So I don't think he was as open as he was as he is now, but he definitely had some jokes, and loved to laugh, back then too.
100%. Yeah, that must have been a blast playing with him and getting to know him. But, I mentioned, all your accomplishments with the Eagles. Also spent some time with the Bears and Colts. You actually had your career high in receptions while you were with the Bears. But you retired in 2020, and you had very good numbers up until that point in your career. I mean, did you think about continuing to play at that point? Because there probably still would have been interest in you, or were you just kind of ready to move on from football when you moved away?
No, it was weird, during those times with COVID and the vaccine and this way they did things, the NFL did things. I wasn't willing to give up my stance on what I felt about the vaccines and how the whole entire COVID thing played. And um, that ended up to my demise, for football. And I wasn't, willing to do all that stuff. So that's kind of how it all ended. Honestly, it was kind of short, sweet, not much to it. And just really happy with where I'm at now and what I'm able to do with my family and kids.
100%. And yeah, I mean, it's funny, of all the professions I can think of, I mean, pro sports is one of the ones with the one of the earliest retirement ages, especially in the NFL with all the injuries. Maybe like Major League Baseball players can play at a little bit of an older age than NFL guys. They still retire early though, but I guess everyone has to move on eventually. And I mean, you mentioned the unique circumstances in 2020, may have hastened the end of your career, but I mean, everyone moves on eventually. And when you first got out of football, I mean, I've had some athletes tell me that they have had, an identity crisis after they stopped playing. I've had some former NFL guys come on this podcast. They told me it got pretty dark for them from a mental health standpoint when they moved on from football. You mentioned you're excited for opportunities after the game, excited to spend time with your children. I mean, was it maybe a smoother transition for you?
Yeah, it's kind of hard to be smooth. I mean, honestly, for anybody, it doesn't matter. There might be a unique situation here or there if you have something lined up, while you're playing. So when you're done, like a Brady, like he's done playing and now he goes into the booth and does commentary for, the games. It's tough for most of us and a lot of us. And yeah, it definitely does get dark and definitely does. It's a lot of uncertainty, but I definitely think having kids and my kids were older, that was another reason I didn't want to move and I didn't want to go live in San Francisco when my kids were going in school and playing sports in Florida. So there's a lot of, factors that went into the decision to kind of hang them up. But yeah, it definitely does get dark. It definitely is challenging. And there is a loss of identity, especially because all you've ever known since I was 6 years old. That was my job, playing football, and I never had a job anywhere else. And I really loved the sport and loved playing the game and the competition in the locker room. So you do miss out on a lot of those things, but having a community and a great family and wife and those type of things definitely is a positive factor.
That's awesome. I give you a lot of respect also. You mentioned part of why you retired was you didn't want to have to keep moving your kids around. And it's not just something in pro sports, but like in a lot of professions, kids' lives get uprooted because their parent has a new job opportunity in a different part of the country,
Sure.
and it's really hard on kids. So honestly, ton of respect for you to, put your kids' needs first and walk away from football. I'm sure that wasn't easy, but like I said, a ton of respect to you for that. But you know, obviously since getting out of the game, you've done a lot. You've worked with International Justice Mission. You worked as an NIL advocate. You've done some podcasting. I mean, what have been the most enjoyable things, outside of spending time with your family, the most enjoyable things you've gotten into since moving on from playing in the NFL?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, I worked with IJM, International Justice Mission, for a long time, probably since my, second year in the league. Just, partnering with them on some of the advocacy things that they're doing across the country or across the world, and being able to travel to some of the field offices and, like Dominican Republic or Guatemala. I've been to Ghana with them and just seeing some of the justice mission that they have, and stopping trafficking for minors and kids, and whether it's sexual or work related. Like, it's kind of crazy seeing, your eyes being open to what's happening across the globe, and what's happening out there in other countries that are really close to America. So it's been fun just advocating for them and just the opportunities that we've been able to have. Number one, being NFL players, but number two, like being able to win a Super Bowl and being able to play a cool part in winning the Super Bowl. Just some of the world leaders and vice presidents and that type of stuff that we've been able to meet and just let them know of the issue that they have in their country and make it a little bit easier for International Justice Mission to do their work. And but yeah, I don't know, man. Like that's been great. Being around the kids and the family and the life lessons my kids are learning through sports. And my wife calls me like I'm the travel parent. So whenever we go out of the city or out of the state, like that's my job, and I love it. I enjoy every minute that I get to spend with my kids, out of state and traveling with sports. And yeah, it's just those type of things are really enjoyable for me.
That's great. That's great. And also, it's great the work you do with International Justice Mission. Also, you've been outspoken about NIL, and obviously times have changed because NIL, if I remember correctly, it didn't go into play until after your college career had
Yeah,
ended.
way after. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was, I mean, it was a different time. And I actually love NIL. I know some people have criticized it. I just think, especially of all the college sports, with big time college basketball and big time college football, they have such big fan bases. They make so much money for the school. I feel as though athletes should be compensated as well. But, what motivated you to kind of get involved in that?
Well, I was asked, by Congressman Gus Bilirakis, that's local here in the Tampa area, and he asked me to just what my thoughts were. We had, dinner and talked about it. Same with the AD at Florida. We were just talking about just what the landscape was. This was a couple years ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, when it kind of all just started, and they just asked me to, raise my voice and talk about how I felt and what I thought, and so that's kind of why I was able to go testify in front of Congress, which is kind of crazy. I never thought in my entire life that I would have that opportunity to, sit in front of everybody and, talk about it and answer questions. But, I think there's still a lot of unknowns, even though, we're probably year 4 or 5, maybe 6 by now, of NIL. But at the end of the day, my belief is that once they figure out the transfer portal and the issues that it's causing, I think NIL won't be as big of as an issue or a conversation once they figure out the transfer portal.
Okay, so you think people will be more on board with NIL once the transfer portal issues are resolved? And what are your views specifically on the transfer portal? Do you like the current rules? Do you think they need to be adjusted?
I don't think many people like the current rules.
Hmm.
The issue is, every time someone has anything to say negatively about it, they get sued, or they try to stop someone from transferring, they get sued. So the current landscape is just kind of crazy. But I think that NIL, and if once the transfer portal is there's some type of ruling on it and it's not as free as it is now, because in reality, like NIL is name, image, likeness. It's not pay to play. And what right
Right.
now is you're seeing is pay to play. And so once you're not able to transfer as much, or you're not able to hit the transfer portal every single year, I mean, because if you're thinking it from a player standpoint, like I was a player for 4 years at Florida, why would you not enter the transfer portal? Especially if you're have any type of decent season, especially at the University of Florida, or even at a lower school, Division I AA or Division II. Like, why would you not hit the transfer portal? Because there's no limitations on hitting it, and it allows you to become a free agent, and you're allowed to technically get bid on every single year. So, like from that standpoint, like I totally makes sense to me as a player. Like I would 100%, I know for sure I would have hit the transfer portal just because I would be able to re-up at this current school I'm at, or I'd be able to get the highest dollar from whatever school wants me. On top of that, so there just needs to be some type of legislation on the transfer portal, and I think everything will kind of get tied in behind that.
And would you say also the perfect scenario would be to have the transfer portal tightened up, but then have athletes, college athletes, able to make money off name, image, and likeness, but not pay to play? Is that kind of what you say the or
Yeah, well, I think NIL is name, image, and likeness. It's
right,
not pay to
right,
play. If it
right, right,
goes pay to
right,
play, then there needs to be a salary cap,
right.
and I'm never gonna argue against players getting paid. Like they should get paid, what they're
Yeah,
worth, and they should take advantage of every opportunity that they have, right? Definitely not against that. But if people want to solve the issue of what's going on right now, you got to figure out first. You got to not look at NIL, look at transfer portal, and if you're able to hit free agency every single year,
right.
there's not a player in the world I would advise against doing that, unless you didn't have a good year and you could potentially not make it back on the team that you were currently on. Like there's so many like loopholes and scenarios that are unique, that I'm just speaking like generally, like, yeah, you should definitely hit the transfer portal, right? You should definitely get the top dollar. Or if you love the school you're at so much, then you should go back to school you love. Like should be no issue. But with the current situation that we're in right now, if they would limit transferring, it would limit pay for play because kids would not be able to hit free agency every single year.
100%. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and yeah, definitely appreciate the insight on that, and also I mentioned all the different things you've been involved in, but for any big Trey Burton fans, maybe some Eagles fans who miss watching you play for the Eagles, I mean, what are your plans in the near future? Everyone's probably wondering what you're up to. Do you have some different events and things you're really excited for in the near future?
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out what I want to get into next. I've taken it slow. I took the first couple of years off from retirement and just reintroduced myself to my family, my kids, and community, friends, from the area, and trying to figure out, what I'm gonna what I want to get into next. And hopefully in the next couple of years, I'm not going to rush into anything, but hopefully in the next couple of years, I'm rocking and rolling in some profession and having a good time.
Who knows? Maybe the next head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't know. I
Yeah,
don't
who
want to put
knows?
rumors out there. Yeah, you can call more Philly specials from the sideline, maybe. But
I could. I would call it often once a game.
too bad they don't have player coaches in the NFL. You can call it, with yourself. But yeah, but also for anyone looking to keep up with you, what are your social media handles that fans can follow you at?
Yeah, just Trey Burton 8 on all social media.
Awesome, awesome. And also, are there any, like, with International Justice Mission, are there any places people can go online to, like, donate to that organization, anything like that?
Yeah, I believe it's ijm.org is their website, and they do, now that we're in the off season for football, there's not much campaigning going on. Obviously, if anybody is interested and is willing to give, then they'll accept it. But usually during football season, I think during baseball season, they do some type of campaigning. A lot of the players will do a match or something along those lines, dollar for dollar. So if you're looking for that, I would wait a little bit closer to the seasons, and yeah, they'll have something out there.
That's awesome. So yeah, everyone definitely check that out. Check out all the great work that IGM is doing, and definitely also give Trey follow on social media to find out his next plans. But Trey, it's been great. Having you on, talking some football, getting your insight on a number of things, and yeah, thanks for your time.
Anytime, brother. Talk to you soon.
Sounds good. All right. So once again, everyone, that was Trey Burton. You've been listening to the Leverett Ball Show.